Amish girls receive no sex education before marriage, no books, no conversations, no preparation of any kind. On their wedding night, they enter a world governed by 10 unspoken rules the church never writes down, but every wife is expected to follow. Here is what those rules actually are. What girls are never told. Amish girls grow up on farms. They watch animals. They understand reproduction in a basic biological sense. But no adult ever connects that knowledge to what will happen in their own marriage. Amish schools provide no sex education. Parents do not discuss it. The church does not address it with young women before marriage. By the time a girl marries at 19, she may understand the basic mechanics, but she has no framework for the unspoken rules that will govern her most private life from her wedding night forward. Night without preparation. The Amish wedding is a long day. It begins at 8 in the morning with a church service lasting 3 hours. After the service, there is a large meal, then visiting, then another meal in the evening. By the time it ends, the bride is exhausted. She has been the center of attention for 12 or more hours, and then the guests leave. She is alone with her husband for the first time. No one has told her what to expect. The older women gave practical advice about cooking and managing a household, but detailed preparation is not part of Amish culture. What happens next is governed entirely by expectations the bride absorbed from her culture without anyone ever stating them directly. Never refuse the husband. The most fundamental unspoken rule of the Amish marriage bed is that the wife does not refuse her husband. This expectation comes directly from Scripture. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 4 states that the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Amish church teaching takes this passage literally. A wife's body belongs to her husband within marriage. Refusal is not a right she possesses. This is never written into the Ordnung explicitly, but it is absorbed by every Amish woman as an absolute expectation. Older women communicate it through the way they describe marriage. A good wife serves her husband. A good wife understands that his needs are her responsibility. Whatever her own feelings on a given night, the wife is expected to respond without resistance. No birth control allowed. Amish communities officially oppose artificial birth control. The theological basis is the Genesis command to be fruitful and multiply, combined with the belief that God alone determines when a family grows. Hormonal birth control, IUDs, and similar modern methods are rejected in most Old Order communities. The practical consequence is that the average Amish wife has her first pregnancy within the first year of marriage and continues having children at roughly 2-year intervals. 7 to 9 children is the typical result. Some families have 12 or more. Natural family planning methods are used by some couples quietly. But for most Old Order Amish wives, the prohibition is real and enforced through church teaching, community expectation, and the belief that accepting children without restriction is an act of faith and obedience to God. No discussion outside the marriage. What happens in the marriage bed stays in the marriage bed. This is an absolute rule in Amish culture. A wife does not discuss her intimate life with anyone outside her marriage, not with her mother, not with her sisters, not with her closest friends at quilting bees or work frolics. The privacy of the marriage bed is considered sacred. To discuss it would be to violate the sanctity of the marriage itself. This silence creates a profound isolation for young wives navigating expectations they were never prepared for. If something is wrong, if she is struggling, if she has questions or concerns about what is expected of her, she has almost no one to ask. The older women in her life who might have guidance maintain the same silence. They will sometimes offer the briefest whispered encouragement. They will sometimes squeeze a young wife's hand in a way that communicates understanding without words. But direct conversation about the specific realities of marital intimacy does not happen. A young wife who finds the expectations of marriage physically or emotionally difficult carries that difficulty alone. She cannot seek counsel from her mother without violating the unspoken code of silence that governs this most private aspect of Amish life. Modesty does not end at the altar. Outside the bedroom, an Amish wife maintains strict modesty. Long, plain dresses, head covering, no jewelry, no makeup, no clothing that draws attention to the body. This modesty extends into the marriage bed in ways that outsiders might not expect. Amish wives do not own lingerie or intimate apparel designed to be attractive. Nightgowns are plain and functional. The emphasis on physical modesty that governs every other aspect of an Amish woman's appearance does not disappear when she is alone with her husband. The marriage bed is not a place where the rules of plain living are suspended. It is governed by the same values of simplicity, restraint, and purpose that govern everything else. Intimacy within marriage is considered God's gift and is not treated as shameful. But neither is it treated as something to be elaborated or decorated with the kind of physical presentation that English culture associates with romance. The plainness that defines Amish life outside the bedroom is present inside it as well. The wife's body belongs to her husband and to the purpose of building a family. It is not a vehicle for personal expression or individual desire. The modesty she has practiced her entire life does not end at the altar. It simply takes a different form inside the privacy of her own home. Pregnancy is the proof. In Amish culture, a wife's willingness to fulfill her marital obligations is demonstrated not through words, but through pregnancies. A young wife who becomes pregnant within the first year of marriage is meeting expectations. A wife who goes 2 or 3 years without a pregnancy raises questions. The community does not ask directly, but people notice. Women at church notice. Mothers-in-law notice. The absence of a visible pregnancy after a reasonable time generates whispered speculation. Is something wrong with her health? Is something wrong with her husband? Are they practicing some form of birth control? The assumption in most cases is that something is wrong medically, rather than that the couple is choosing to delay. Because the choice to delay would itself be a violation of the expectation that children come when God sends them. A wife who delivers her first child within a year of marriage and her second 2 years after that is fulfilling her role completely. Each pregnancy is evidence of a marriage functioning as it should. This connection between pregnancy and marital duty means that the wife's body is, in a sense, always public, even when what produces pregnancies is entirely private. The community watches her body for the signs that confirm her obedience to the expectations of Amish wifehood. What older women whisper. The only guidance young Amish brides receive about the unspoken rules of married life comes in whispers from older women. It happens at the wedding itself. An aunt pulls the bride aside briefly in the kitchen. A grandmother squeezes her hand before the guests arrive. An older sister finds a private moment the week before the wedding. What they say is never detailed or explicit. It is wrapped in vague encouragement and cultural shorthand that a young woman raised in Amish culture understands even though nothing has been said plainly. Be a good wife. Take care of your husband. Remember that your job is to make him happy. These phrases carry enormous weight in Amish culture. Every woman who hears them knows exactly what they mean, even though none of the specific expectations have been named. The older women are not being cruel. They are passing down the same guidance they received. They are preparing the young bride as well as the culture allows, but the preparation is incomplete by design. The full reality of what is expected is something each wife must discover and absorb on her own in the privacy of her new home. The whispers point toward the rules without ever stating them. The young bride must translate the whispers into understanding through her own experience. When the body cannot keep up, by her mid-30s, an Amish wife may have delivered 7 or 8 children. Her body has been through years of pregnancy, childbirth, nursing, and the physical demands of managing a large household without modern appliances. She is tired in a way that goes beyond any single night of poor sleep. It is a structural exhaustion built into the bones from years of continuous physical demand. And yet the unspoken rules do not adjust for this exhaustion. The expectation that she will be available to her husband does not diminish as her body ages and accumulates the wear of large family life. The prohibition on birth control means she may still be delivering children into her 40s if her body allows it. Some Amish women in this position quietly seek medical guidance. A doctor may recommend spacing pregnancies for health reasons. This medical recommendation gives a wife permission to discuss birth control with her husband in a way that the church's prohibition alone does not. Some older women quietly undergo sterilization after their last pregnancy, with the understanding that their family is complete and their body can endure no more. These decisions are made privately and rarely discussed. The community does not investigate the intimate details of a long marriage. By the time a wife is in her 40s, the closest scrutiny of her pregnancies has passed. She has demonstrated her faithfulness through decades of motherhood. What happens in her bedroom at 45 is between her, her husband, and God. What does not get discussed is how many Amish women reach this stage carrying wounds that never fully healed. The years of continuous pregnancy took something from them that no amount of community support restored. Their bodies recovered from each birth, but the cumulative cost of a decade and a half of pregnancies without meaningful choice quietly reshaped who they were. Some women speak of this only to their closest sisters, in hushed voices at quilting bees, when the conversation turns serious and the younger women have left the room. They do not call it suffering. They call it the life God gave them. But in the way they say it, and in the pause that follows, something else is present. Something that does not have a name in Pennsylvania Dutch, but that every woman in that room recognizes immediately. When the rules break a marriage, Amish marriages do not end in divorce. The church does not permit it. A couple who separates faces excommunication. A spouse who remarries while their former partner is still living is in violation of Scripture as the Amish understand it. So Amish marriages do not break in the way English marriages break, but they do fracture. Quietly, without announcement, without the clean, legal ending that English couples can seek. A husband and wife who have grown incompatible or who have been damaged by years of unmet needs and unspoken resentments continue living together in the same house. They share the same table. They attend the same church. They present the appearance of a functioning marriage to the community. But the intimacy that the unspoken rules require has become a source of distance rather than connection. A wife who has spent 20 years following rules she never chose and never questioned may reach a point where the private life of her marriage is nothing more than obligation fulfilled without feeling. This outcome is not visible from the outside. The community sees a long marriage. It sees a large family. It sees a couple who have remained together through decades of plain living. What it does not see is what those unspoken rules cost over 20 years of quiet obedience. The rules kept the marriage intact. What they could not guarantee was that the marriage would also be whole. The fracture shows in small ways that only those close to the couple can detect. The wife who no longer laughs easily at her husband's jokes. The husband who has stopped seeking his wife's opinion before making decisions. The space at the supper table that feels wider than the physical distance between two chairs. These are not dramatic signs. They are quiet ones. The kind that accumulate so gradually that the couple themselves may not be able to identify the moment when the marriage shifted from partnership into coexistence. The church has no language for this outcome because the church does not acknowledge it as an outcome. The marriage continues, the vows hold, the rules are still followed. But the warmth that was supposed to grow inside those rules has gone somewhere the rules cannot reach. And in a culture where divorce is impossible and suffering is expected to be borne privately, that coldness simply becomes the weather of the marriage, neither spoken of nor resolved, just endured. The 10 unspoken rules that govern the marriage bed of an Amish wife are never written down. They appear in no document. They are not read aloud at weddings. They are not included in any formal instruction given to young women before marriage. They are absorbed through a lifetime of observation, through brief, whispered guidance from older women, and through the cultural understanding that a good Amish wife fulfills her obligations without complaint and without question. She enters marriage without preparation and learns the rules through experience. She never refuses her husband. She accepts children without artificial interference because God determines the size of the family. She never discusses what happens behind her bedroom door with anyone outside her marriage. She maintains the modesty and plainness of Amish life even in her most private moments. She demonstrates her faithfulness through pregnancies that the community watches for and counts. She absorbs the whispered guidance of older women and carries it forward to the next generation of young brides. She endures the physical cost of large family life without complaint. and she remains in her marriage regardless of what those rules have cost her, because the alternative is excommunication and the permanent loss of everyone and everything she has ever known. To the outside world, these rules look like oppression,